Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more months than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however, emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident. Good day and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Miguel Garcia. Miguel has been married for 38 years, and through those years, his wife and him have had 15 children, 13 alive, and now with 2 being a set of twins with Down syndrome. Miguel has been an entrepreneur for over 20 years, built 8 successful businesses in different industries. Businesses such as firearms, tactical gear retail, ammunition manufacturing, telecommunication, construction projects, government contracts, imported food products, consumer health products manufacturing, and retail. A plethora of great things that have helped so many people in life. Miguel is a seasoned executive with a strategic growth and problem-solving skills and a heavy bias towards action. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Miguel. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
Thank you very much for having me, man. I've been looking forward to this podcast.
I as well, brother. You and I, like I was saying before I hit record, there's a lot of things that I connect with in regards to yourself, your family, your thought processes, and now I get to share that with my listeners, and I appreciate you coming on. So, Miguel, one of the things that I focus on, as I mentioned prior to hitting record, is I focus on people's origin story, and I like to dive it right down to your earliest recollections, all the way up to where you are today, because even the things that happened from when you were younger, the pattern learning you've experienced, everything in your life has led you where you are today. And the more we recognize that, and the more we're vulnerable with people, as you had mentioned too, when we talked about it, people have the ability to then know, like, and trust us even more, right? And it all starts with being vulnerable about even the hardest things that have happened in our lives. So if you could do me a favor and again, share from your childhood earliest recollections to where you are today, I'd appreciate that.
That's a good question. Earliest recollection would be the birth of my sister, one of my sisters. I was probably 3, I want to say, probably 3. And then the next one was, I was 4 and I was going to preschool. And I was being bullied by 3 boys in my school. And one day I just got fed up. And I told my cousin I was going to beat him up the next day. And he told my mom. My mom went up to me. She goes, "No, you can't do this. You can't go fight and do this, violence thing or whatever." And I was committed. I was going to defend myself. I was sick and tired of getting bullied. Next day, I show up for school. First thing I go for the leader. I punch them. I told them they were never going to bully me again. And then all of a sudden I see the terror in their eyes, and I was like, okay, I own these bitches. And it was, I was really proud of myself because I built up the courage to fight them off. So obviously, my mom got called in school. They sent me home, and my mom was pretty upset because she told me not to do it. Then when my dad came home, he said, "What was going on?" So I told him, and he goes, "Good job. He goes, I'm proud of you." And my mom was like, "You're condoning violence." He goes, "No, I'm condoning him defending himself and fighting for the right things." And I was like, "Good, man. My dad is proud of me." Because my dad was really, well, I'm Mexican. I was born in Mexico. He was very macho. like the old macho culture. Like there's nothing I can't do wrong. I'm the head of the household. I command the whole household. Nobody says anything. I have the final decision, kind of a guy. And so for me to earn his respect or get his praise was huge.
That's awesome. Like, I was writing some notes down here and I highlighted, macho. My dad was, being one of 18, it wouldn't even necessarily been him fighting in school. It would be him fighting his own siblings to
Yep.
establish the fact of getting bullied and picked on. And mom was like, same thing. Don't do this. Dad was do this. And then I look at my childhood and my dad was like, punch him in the nose. And my mom was like, no, you can't do that. So there's a lot of consistencies that happen with what, goes on between the generations.
Oh yeah, funny thing you say, punch him in the nose. My daughter, she was 5 or 6. She was going, I think, first grade. My oldest daughter, and this kid was bullying her because they were going to a co-ed school. And I said, well, talk to the teacher. Teacher didn't do anything. So the next day she goes, he's still bullying me. He pulled me out of the line and pushed me. And I said, okay, I'm gonna show you how to make a fist. The next time, just punch him. You gotta punch him in the nose, straight in the nose. Aim for the nose. Well, we get a phone call. She gave this little kid a bloody nose. And they're disappointed. But Michelle, my daughter, she's the sweetest thing ever. And for her to build the courage to punch the kid, it took a lot. But I was so proud of her. And they said, do you condone violence? And I said, if you want to call it violence, yes, I condone whatever she did. She defended herself. That's what I condone. I'm okay with it. Nowadays, it's a no-no, right? You can't say, you can't fight back or whatever. You got to, I don't know, probably apologize to your bullies or whatever. But I believe that, a lot of people are pretty messed up because they never fight for themselves, because the society nowadays says it is wrong to defend yourself. I don't give a shit what people say, man. I do what I do, and if I have to defend myself, I'll defend myself. I tell that to my children. You have to fight a just fight. Even with teachers, we've got some liberal teachers that are talking crap. I said, you have to say, excuse me, with all due respect, I don't agree with this or that or whatever. And that's what you do, man. You have integrity and you have your core values that you live by, period. If something is against those things, then like you said, it's not your tribe or it's not where you belong or whatever. That's one of the reasons why we left Chicago. We were living in Chicago and it was getting too liberal for us and too crazy. And so we left, we moved to the middle of nowhere, they call it, Kansas. And I love it here, man. It's just awesome. So anyway, we live in our core values.
Well, that's good. So what happened? So were you a kid that what did you do after school? Did you were you a person that went to college, or did you get involved in business right away? What part of that, or what was that part of your origin?
So we moved to the States in 1977. And in Mexico, I had a scholarship for my whole entire school throughout my life, like grammar school. They call them secondary school, which is junior high here, and high school and college. I had a scholarship for all that. And when we moved to the States, I had to go back to continue school because it was a very prestigious school. But then I started kind of I didn't have my parents anymore. I was living with my grandparents, and 13 years old, 14 years old, started hanging out with the wrong crowd and all sorts of things. And finally, my parents said, hey, why don't you come to Chicago this winter? You've never seen snow. It's beautiful, blah, blah, blah. So they convinced me to come back. And then they kidnapped me, basically. At the end of the 2 weeks, I said to my mom, so when am I going back? And she goes, you're not going back. And I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, no. So they took my passport away and all sorts of things. And she goes, as a matter of fact, you start school on Monday. And I didn't know any English at all. And so here I am at the public high school in Chicago, trying to understand what the hell was going on. I mean, they just turned my world upside down. But then that was probably my freshman year. Then on my second and third years of high school, there were a lot of white gangs in the neighborhood. My dad would not live in a Spanish neighborhood. He would not live in Spanish because they were infested with gangs. So we lived in a white neighborhood, Caucasian or whatever the hell they call it nowadays. And so I had white gangs chasing me all the time. So I was like probably maybe the third or fourth brown kid in the neighborhood. And so we had a lot of issues. Then Hispanic, they started sending Hispanics to our school. I don't understand the logic of that or how it happened, but all of a sudden we started getting Spanish gangs in the high school. So I was being pressured to join the gangs. And you know, it's hard pressure, pretty hard pressure. I mean, to blows and you know, constant harassment and all that stuff. And so I dropped out of high school on my was supposed to be my senior year. And I told my mom, I said, I'm dropping off. I said, I'm gonna go get a job and I'm gonna finish my what they call here in the United States GED. So I did that, went to school at night, worked during the day, and I got my GED. Then I tried college for about a year and a half. And the place where I was working, they had an opening for a computer operator. This was back in 1980. And so they told me that they would pay for my school if I took the job. So I took the job. Basically, I got promoted. I took the job as a computer operator. They sent me to what we used to call it IBM school, because he was a mainframe. And so that's how my office job started. And I went from a computer operator, mainframes, to a programmer analyst for about 15 years. So I kept going to class, and so I went from computer operator to junior programmer to programmer analyst, and all that stuff. And so, yeah, didn't miss college at all or anything like that. And then from then on, I went when I moved in '95 to Kansas. I started working for two very entrepreneurial people, and I was like, "Whoa, wow! You could make as much money as you possibly can if you are an entrepreneur versus getting a salary or getting an hourly wage." And so they were motivating me with bonuses. And the first year I started working for them, I tripled my salary with the bonuses, and I'm like, okay. And they're like, hey, there's no limit, but whatever you can do. So they started giving me new tasks. Like for instance, I joined a company, and they were a telecommunications training company, and they had instructors that they would teach technologies like I don't know if they remember ISDN, the internet, how the phone system works, and all sorts of things. So our major clients were all the telephone companies, and so we had instructors all over the world. We had some Canadians, Americans, we had people in South America, and they had a problem with logistics because there were too many classes and they were flying everybody around or whatever. So they hired me to handle that logistics part. And with my programming background, I go, okay, well, how do I automate this thing? Then I realized I was like a problem solving guy, because I could start figuring things out. How do I automate this thing? So I was able to talk to my boss and said, hey, I could automate this thing if you give me a programmer, and we could define the parameters. And so I kind of gave him the big overall thing. And I said, but I need a resource that's going to help me do this. And so they gave it to me, and we created a automated calendar. And so the calendar would go based on a zip code, and whoever was certified to teach that class, when we plugged in the class would go, okay, this is an internet class. Who are the instructors? Well, you've got 4 instructors. Who's the closest to us? And then we would assign it to that person. So we were saving resources in terms of, flying people around and expenses and all sorts of things. And so they gave me bonuses for that. And they go, hey, we're having this other issue. The instructors are booking their own flights and their own cars, and they don't respect the pricing rules. And so this, can you fix that? I'm like, yep. So I went in there and I created my own travel agency. I hired a travel agent, brought him in, got the computers and the systems and all sorts of things. And we were forcing the instructors to call in and book their tickets through our travel agency and book the cars through our travel agency. As a matter of fact, I negotiated one of the first contracts with National Car Rental, where we got the Emerald Eye. And so my instructors were pretty happy because they could just go out. They didn't have to, stop at the counter and do anything. And they would pick a car that they want instead of always booking a full-size car or whatever. And so we were saving a lot of money, and they were giving me bonuses based on all that stuff. And so for me, my mind started exploding. It's like, oh my God, there's people that do this. They reward this type of behavior. I'm like, okay. So I worked for them for about 5-6 years. We went from like $6 million a year in revenue to 40 in about 2-3 years. And I did very well for them.
Wow.
Then the whole business collapsed when the dot-com bubble burst.
Oh, and oh 02.
And we had 9/11 as well. All that the combination basically killed the business. So that was a godsend for me, because I started my entrepreneurial career there. It forced me to go into business on my own.
That's amazing. I listened to what you're talking about, and there's a lot of similarities, a lot of consistencies that I see between you and I. And I say that because I did go to college initially for computer programming, ended up not making it through because it didn't vibe with me. I went into electronics engineering at a technical school, but all school really did was, tell people that I knew how to learn. It didn't necessarily mean that I was any better than somebody that didn't go to college. And I look at my history of all the places, people I work for, and my tenacity and ability to help them solve problems, even if it was out of my wheelhouse, is the reason why I continued to evolve and continue to move forward to a point where I ended up, having some things happen similar to you, of not necessarily the .com industry, but it was similar. I started in my career in the finance industry in 2002, and it was directly related to what happened with 9/11 and some of the things that collapsed because of people not necessarily needing my service as a computer consultant. I have my own consulting firm, and I transitioned and moved forward. The difference between me and many other people is they sit and they suck their thumbs, and where are they on the other side? Just like the pandemic now, I ask people all the time, where are you now 2 years later? What did you do? Did you do anything to better your life or move it forward, or did you stay stuck? Well, you didn't stay stuck. You just kept on pushing forward, and you've seen it as an opportunity to start your own entrepreneurial journey. But you were able to start your entrepreneurial journey because you always were able to be a problem solver. You always had solutions, and that's admirable. Like, honestly, everything that you've done, like I said, I've done programming, I've done all the technology stuff around IT, and it's an unforgiving industry, really. It's like 2 people are happy with you, 100 hate you. Right. So it's so much easier to become your own entrepreneur, because then you're always guiding and controlling your own ship. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, no, definitely. When I in 95, 94, I wanted to just leave Chicago. I was sick and tired of the whole thing. And I met some people at a nation retreat in Rochester, New York. I met them from St. Mary's, Kansas. And when I went to that retreat, a spiritual retreat, they talked to me and they go, hey, you had to come to St. Mary's. It's beautiful, great place for a family, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. So I came back home and I told my wife, let's go see. So we drove drove to St. Mary's, Kansas, which is about an hour and a half hours from Chicago. And I loved it, man. It was like stepping back in time, like back into the 40s, 50s, or whatever. It's really laid back town. Everybody been extremely friendly. Bicycles on the yard, garage door open. You know, little kids saying hi, mister, and I'm looking at this kid's like, kid, you're not supposed to say hello to strangers, kind of a thing, you know. So we fell in love with the place, and he's like, okay, let's move. And I was making really good money in Chicago, and moving back to Kansas wasn't going to be the case. And so I kept praying about it. I kept praying about it. Then I got laid off. So that was God going, yes, you're going. I know you don't want to go because you're afraid of the money and all that stuff, but guess what? I'm going to take that thing that you love so much, which is your job. So I got laid off, but then I got a really great severance package, what I did with that, I went back to school and I became a Novell certified network operator. And when I came to visit St. Mary's, I found a business that was looking for a network administrator in Novell. They had a Novell network. And so it's just, I mean, you know, God's got it all figured out for you. You just got to go with the flow. That's the whole thing. You know, you look back and you go, oh my God, it was so clear. That was the path. But when you're doing it, you're all scared. And so I went and interviewed with the man, and he goes, yes, I need you right now. So that was it, man. We moved.
That's so interesting because I do know what Novell certified is because again, I want to what are the chances that we would have so much in common, whether it's, you know, there's an age gap or not, we have a lot of similarities and consistencies and different things where God has intervened and redirected us. And yeah, so that's amazing though. The whole resounding thing I want the listeners, the people watching to understand is you were open to change. You may have resisted at the odd time, or maybe it took you a little bit of time, but you were open to stepping outside of your comfort zone because nothing in life is ever achieved by being comfortable. God wants us to be the best versions of ourselves. And sometimes that requires us to be uncomfortable and to try new things and realize, like you said, your job was comfortable, but God took that away from you. And you could see that after the fact that it was a blessing. Most people live their whole lives on the hamster wheel of thinking it was a curse.
You know what? The interesting thing was that I was concerned that I was only going to make enough here. And so what God did is got laid off, and they gave me a 1-year severance pay with insurance, every benefit for a whole year. I went to Novell School, graduated, moved to Kansas, and I was still receiving compensation from that the plan. And so that kind of helped me ease into things. So even God provided that for me. And so it's just amazing, man. Yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've seen God in my life, like it's amazing.
Yeah, and you know, and it's a trust thing. We just have to trust that, you know, we are where we need to be in life, and you know, we're pattern trained by society and even our families to resist instead of just giving it up, right? And you know, kudos to you. I appreciate you sharing it. Your origin story is amazing. I love it. So, Miguel, you have successfully built and exited many businesses in the last 20 years. Not all of these businesses were in the same wheelhouse of product or service they offered. In your opinion, are the processes to start and run a successful business the same no matter what type of business it is?
Yeah, I would have to say yes. It's just so to me, first of all, I like to make things simple. I'm a guy. I'm a little bit of dyslexia here and there, and I don't like complicated things. So one of my core values is simplicity. Simplicity being, if I'm going to communicate with you, I'm going to communicate in the best, most simple way so that we understand everything. And so simplicity, even on how to document procedures in the business, how to do everything. So simplicity for me is major. And I think that to start a business, it starts there because there's sort of simple things. Like, for instance, I'm going to tell you about the ammo business. Okay. So we have retail stores that were selling tactical gear in the military bases. You know, we like guns. So we're like, why don't we do a retail gun business? Like, great. So we were opening gun stores. And gun stores are different than your typical in the military base retail store, because it's different assortment and it could be different customer too. You're dealing with civilians, you're dealing with police officers, and all sorts of things. So it's just a little bit different. It's still the same wheelhouse retail, but now you're under the scrutiny of the government because you're dealing with guns, right? So during the Obama years, when he got into office, there was an ammo shortage. So we got gun stores. We got 4 gun stores, and we don't have any ammo. So you can't sell a gun without ammo, basically. I mean, because you could buy the gun and there's no ammo. And so I told my partners, you know what? This is bullshit. Let's just start manufacturing our ammo, because we were trying to get ammo from anywhere, even Europe, and we couldn't get anything. So not enough, I should say. And so I said, why don't we just manufacture ourselves? And they're like, you're freaking crazy, man. We're a retailer. We're not a manufacturer. I'm like, well, okay. If you give me your support, I'll get it going. So they're like, yeah, you could do it. Go ahead. And to me, the simple thing is like this: figure out what you want to do, right? And then who does it better? Go study them. Okay. So in this case, I started looking at ammo manufacturers, not like Remington or PMC or anybody like that, like smaller manufacturers. What were they doing? How were they doing it? What kind of machinery they were using? How do they source out their things? Sort of, you know. So a bullet has the casing, the powder. You need the projectile and the primer. If you don't have it, one of those components, you can't make bullets. So you have to have a good sourcing partners for that. And so, you know, who's the best partner for this and that? So basically, you go through steps. The first step is, what do you want to do? Okay, I want to manufacture ammo. Great. Who's the best one out there? So and so. Okay, study that guy. Look at him. Second is, okay, how do you source the product, the raw materials? And then, you know, what kind of machinery you need. So it's just little steps. People get so bogged down by the whole thing, like, oh my God, I'm a manufacturer. And it's like the cloud. It's like this intangible thing. They make the goal an intangible thing. And for me, it's like, okay, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, little by little. So you start with one thing, you solve this little problem, then you solve the next one and the next one and the next one, and then all of a sudden you're there. I don't want to oversimplify, but it is simple.
But it's like the phrase "keep it simple, stupid." You know what? That is that phrase that irritates people, but it's true. People do overcomplicate life, right? And I'll tell people that even on personal coaching, it might not even be about a business. It's just themselves. I say, you're looking at the problem and you're blowing it up. Keep it simple. Let's analyze what's going on, and then let's peel it back from that. And I use that for my own business with finance too. But people complicate things. You're so right.
Yeah, the focus on the, I call it the cloud because I don't understand the cloud. You know, I stuff go to the cloud, right? And so I don't understand I want to see the details. How does he go here and there? But it's the same thing with the goal. It's like, okay, I want to manufacture ammo, or like for our current business, we want to do natural products, and we are doing custom machinery and things like that. I mean, how do you get to that point? Well, it started down here with a need during COVID with the towelettes. We wanted something natural. We wanted a formula that would kill bacteria, but alcohol free. So it wouldn't, because alcohol is really bad because it goes into your bloodstream, and it also affects your skin and all sorts of things. It's really bad. And so we came up with this formula. We partnered with a lab and said, this is what we want. And we partnered with a essential oil manufacturer who's been around over 112 years. So the best of the best. And then we partnered with a lab and we gave them the formula and they did the test. And so it's one step at a time.
Even I remember when you were starting that up, I remember following the process, and you were even having problems with some of the machines and stuff, like just the different little things. But it was, you looked at it, you figured out, found solutions, and you continue to push forward. Where many people in society, they fold up shop and quit, throw their hands up in the air, right? You've always been a person that sticks to it, stick to itiveness, and push forward. Let's figure it out. Keep it simple. I've seen that through getting to know you in the last years.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody, I think it was Tony Robbins interviewing somebody, and she used the word, everything's figurable. You could figure anything out, anything that you want to do. So all your listeners that want to start a business and they don't know what or how, just make a decision. I'm going to do this, and then go figure it out. It's just that.
Yeah, it's true. And if part of Arte that was listening, that I do have some Arte listeners. Bottom line, Arte is a connection to people coaching and mentoring you and giving you ability to think differently. So if you're stuck, or you want to start your own business, or you have your own business, or you're in a career and you want to advance, it's okay to be vulnerable and find yourself a mentor. Find somebody that can say to you, in a way that resonates with you. Obviously, just like getting a doctor, find somebody that's going to connect and give you the advice and information that is going to resonate with you. As a side note, don't be afraid to interview coaches, mentors. But myself, in my life, that's why I joined Arte years ago. It was because I had people in my life, but I was at a level that my energy level was higher than them. I was climbing at a different pace. They were stuck. They had stopped growing. They weren't able to mentor or coach me. So I needed to find that next level. Right. And Arte was that for me. So if you're listening, watching, and you're stuck, look at finding yourself a good coach. Look at finding yourself somebody that they'll see the forest for the trees where you can't see it, and they can help you correct your mindset and shift you into being the best version of yourself. And yeah, that's pretty much something that hasn't been happening enough in our society today. People think they have to do it on their own. I used to be one of those people.
I
I can do it all. What do I need to, I used to have that cockiness in my life until I decided to give it up and realize that there are so many more better people out there in certain aspects of life that I'm not there. They're farther in the journey. I'm just starting. Why not get their advice, get their input?
So one of the questions that I've been asked is like, what would you? I'm 61, by the way. So if anybody's wondering, I just turned 61. They asked me, what would be the advice you give your young self, like 20-year-old self? He's like, get a mentor, and not get a mentors, because you can get a good mentor in business that he's not going to match your social life, or your religious life or anything like that. So I tell people you got to have like 3 mentors. One is, if you want to go in business, get the kick-ass business mentor. And then if you want a good married life, find somebody who's got a good marriage and relationship with God. Get back into church and find that, because when you have all those 3, it's very difficult to find one that has everything. So you have to have mentors, not just one mentor.
I completely agree with that. I love the fact that you say that, because I tell people that, I have more than one mentor. Well, why do you have that? Well, I have somebody that resonates with me in this aspect of my life. I have somebody that I have a mentor that um we connect on a basis of the fact that I've discovered over the last decade that I'm an empath, and that I bring in other people's energy. And I had to learn I couldn't figure it out at one time, especially with my kids, raising 4 daughters and a son. Couldn't figure out why I always felt so drained. Well, I was picking up things that were happening with my daughters, and they'd be in a different part of the house, or I'd pick up things from my clients. And when I finally realized that mentor was able to teach me some things to appreciate that part of my being, to understand how I can utilize it to elevate and push me forward and help others. Well, that same mentor couldn't help me on my business side.
Correct.
There's absolutely no way. And then I have mentors within my church that I communicate with. One of the deacons in our church, I'm really good friends with him. I actually went to the Middle East with him and a few priests and some nuns and a bunch of people in 2015 to keep it short. But I still communicate with him and have conversations. And then I have another priest that used to be a priest at our church years ago that I still connect with. We still see one another and I communicate with him because they mentor me on a spiritual level. Well, the business person can't do that. The empath coach can't do that. So I love what you said. It's true. It's okay to seek other people out. And if any of your mentors or coaches, I will add this because I've had this happen, say or make you feel like you shouldn't do that, or well, I can help you with everything, run the other way. They're not the person that should be mentoring you if they think that they know it all and they can help you in all aspects of your life.
Yep. I think the marriage for people that are getting married or they're thinking about getting married is huge. I had a call a couple months ago from one young guy. His business is taking off. His wife is expecting, but the business is taking off finally, and so he's goes out to his friends, and then they're like, "Man, you tell your wife that it's going to be balls to the wall. You're going to be on the business because you build in the future. It's for the family, and they're not going to see you very much, and she needs to understand and all that stuff." And he goes, "What do you think?" And I said, "Fucking get rid of those friends, man. They're not smart. They probably don't have good marriages or anything like that because you can't tell. First of all, an expecting mother, it's a bundle of emotions. You can't tell her I'm not going to see you for a while. I'm going to be busy on the business or whatever. And that is also a lie. Nobody's busy 24 hours a day. And it's just like they use very general terms, and he's like believing all this stuff. And like, he now he's in conflict. He's like, I'm gonna have to tell my wife this, that I'm not going to see her for in the next 6-8 months or whatever as much because I'm going to be building the business. And I'm like, no. You can work it out. And I told him, I said, get 3 mentors in business, life, and in religion, and get rid of the friends. Make your circle very, very small. That it all. I tell people that my circle looks like a dot because he's that small. I don't surround myself with anybody that doesn't contribute to my life, making me better at all.
100%. And people don't understand that. Like, I look at the fact of how many energy vampires those in my life have been around. And, I look at the people, I say to people, that person is not writing me a financial paycheck, a mental paycheck, a spiritual paycheck. They're not doing something to pay into my life where I can pay back, where it becomes a synergy. They're an energy vampire, and get them out of your life. And they'll say, well, that's kind of harsh. Have you done that? I said, yes, I've terminated friendships of 25 years when I started having realizations and realized that they weren't meant to be in the new season of my life. They were in the old season of my life. It's time to move on. And it's tough for people though, because, and I'll tell them, you got to start somewhere. And the first thing you need to do is reflect on those in your life. And are they good for you? You don't have to have a big circle, like you said, Miguel. It can be a dot, right? It can. I look at the group of people I used to have. I used to brag about, oh, I got all these people. Now I brag about the fact that I got just a select few, right? Completely different mind shift, right?
Oh, yes.
So one of the things that, it's going to lead into this, and we talked a little bit about this before we started recording. So, I grew up in my dad's family business, very successful entrepreneur. He was so driven to make money though, and keep his client base, front and center, that he neglected the family. He didn't do it intentional. He was one of 18 kids. He had scarcity mindset. He did. I see that. I didn't understand it back then. I understand it now at my age now. He's still alive. He's in his 80s. But, he was very centered around work, and family took the back seat, right? And most people don't understand that this can happen. I've even had it happen in my life. When I first became an entrepreneur, I was always so focused and on that materialistic, getting the money, and I was justified it. I'm taking care of family. I'm taking care of family, but I was only taking care of one aspect of the family. I wasn't taking care of enough of the faith value and being present and being part of their journey. So having such a large family yourself, did you find it a struggle to be present in your family's daily lives as you became that starting entrepreneur and built your businesses?
I might have neglected a little bit, but once I created my core values, see, business owners have business core values, but they don't have family core values, personal core values. And so, because why are core values important? Because every action that you're going to take, you bounce it off your core values. Does this match? Does this match? Does this match? And if it doesn't match, then you don't do it. And so for me, it's God, family, and my country and my business. Those are my four legs on my four-legged stool. And if something doesn't match that, then I just don't do it.
Well, that's great. See, the only thing that I'm missing, and I was reading that about you, you have see my main things that I bounced off now for more than 20 years, core values is faith, family, and work. The one you add one thing in there that I missed in my so I had a three-legged stool. So now I'm forced to reevaluate, which is not a bad thing to add that fourth leg. And I do bounce things off of it, right? Because I didn't want to become, and again, I'm not criticizing my father. He did with what he knew, right? And he did with what he knew, and I respect the hell out of him. I learned a lot about business because I had to start working for him when I was a very young man, right? I was literally 12, 13 years of age where I'd start to go and work with him in his business. And he drove me to being wanting to be an entrepreneur and making my own money. And here's what I owe you, roof over your head, some food and some love, but anything outside of that, you got to work. So I got a paper route, and I learned entrepreneurship because of having a paper route and collecting money and just different things like that. But he had a scarcity mindset. But bottom line, with my core values being faith, family, and work, again, reevaluate, add that fourth leg. I literally, it has kept me grounded. So I didn't become that workaholic again that I started being, so that I always wanted to be present in the journey of my family. Has it always served me in that respect? Yes. Has it hurt me financially sometimes? Yeah. Being a single dad, I was the guy driving them to all their extracurricular activities, so I couldn't necessarily work as much as I wanted to. But I don't have any regrets when I look back at it, because I'll have people say, "Do you have regrets? Do you wish you would have worked more? You'd have more money now. Maybe you wouldn't have to be reevaluating your or redesigning your life to move forward." And I'll say, well, I'm not reevaluating or redesigning my life because I regretting or I didn't do enough back then. That was the journey and season I was in. Now I'm in this journey and season. My kids are all adults now. I have quite a few grandkids, and I'm just moving forward, and I want to keep on leveling up. I'm going to keep on leveling up till I take a day of my last breath. I don't define my life as retirement at 65, right? You're 61, I'm 55 as a few days ago, right? So I'm going to keep on going because it keeps me going. God wants me to continue to prosper by helping others prosper. And I'm going to do that till the day that he decides that it's time for me to exit my corporeal or whatever you want to call it body, right?
Yeah, the interesting thing is, you mentioned this, and I've talked to a lot of people that have that. Well, my parents had a scarcity mindset. If you came from a poor background or whatever, everybody had a scarcity mindset. I mean, my parents, immigrants, all the immigrants have that. I mean, because you come from nothing, and then you're building, and you're always concerned you're going to go back to nothing. They call it scarcity mindset. That's fine, but uh, it's the frugalness that helps. That helps you thrive. Like, for instance, imagine this: 15 children, 15 people eating 3 times a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a week. going to private school. We had to figure out the money. We had to be very frugal in certain things. My wife and I, for a long time, didn't have many dates. Going out, take care of ourselves or whatever. But we had quality time. We had great conversations. We replaced the weekly dates or whatever that we never had with long conversations, sitting across each other from the table on a great meal that she had just made, and just make every moment enjoyable. Nowadays, I look back at those days and I go, did I have scarcity mindset? And I'm like, I don't want to label it that, but we were just very careful with what we were doing, what we were spending the money. And I think that our parents have that. I have things with my mom. My mom, it's financially fine, and she still flies coach, and she still does this. And I'm like, Mom, you have a scarcity mindset. You have the money now. She's 84, and I'm like, fly first class. Give yourself those gifts that you could never give yourself. And so the so-called scarcity mind could end when you become financially success. But no matter, if you really want to change your mind from a scarcity mindset to like a mind about abundance, physically doesn't change you. You still, if you're poor and you have an abundant mindset, physically doesn't change you. Mentally, it's changing you. It's preparing you for the future, right? I mean, for new opportunities and things like that. But meanwhile, I mean, you're still poor. You still have to be frugal. You still need. I know a lot of people that, because of Instagram or whatever, they go out and buy these stupid cars, and they got payments.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have a poor mindset, but you're poor because you have payments. If it's fucking cash, then yeah, cool, man. Kudos. But so
They're living a life of a facade, though. Like,
yeah,
they're trying to present themselves. And I get the frugalness, because 20 years in finance, I focus on helping people budget. It's one of the number one things I start with our lives: goal setting and budgeting before we ever get to wealth management or anything else in their lives. It's, I don't care. I've had clients that are broke. I have clients that are millionaires that have lost it all because they stopped living that frugal mindset. And if they could go buy the car, they were going to go buy it on payments, because then they could get more things, because this is how much they're going to spend and this is how much their payments are going to be. And I'd go, well, that's not the way to think. Right? You need to possess and own and live a life on purpose, right? And live comfortably and still save for your future, still save for the rainy day, or whatever you want to call it. People call it all differently. You have to live life on purpose. And it starts with, there's nothing wrong with being frugal. I still am today.
Yeah, oh, me too, man. I'm driving a 2013 Dodge Ram 1500 pickup truck, and I love that thing. My wife's like, why don't you get yourself a new truck? I'm like, why? I live out in the country. It's 3 miles of gravel road. The gravel road kills everything. I mean,
Absolutely.
I'm like,
Grew up that way too.
Anybody, I don't need to do any of this. I love my truck. And so anyway, it's not that I have a bad mindset or whatever. I don't have a growth minded mindset. I do, because I'm always growing. I'm reading. I'm educating myself. I'm pushing myself to do things that I've never done before. Like with this business, we were going to buy a business in California, and we worked with a lady for about 8 months, and it didn't turn out right. And my wife says, well, why don't we do it on our own? And I'm like, yeah, that's going to save us $5 million. Okay, yeah, let's do it. We'll figure it out. And here we are, So I'm always learning. I'm pushing myself to new heights. Right now, I want to get into real estate. So I bought some properties, and I want to start building stuff. And I've never done that before. So in terms of the growth mindset, I'm growing in other aspects, in other ways
But that's what keeps you. And I know people think it's strange to say, but it does. It keeps you young.
Mhm.
by constantly striving to be elevated and not camp in life, those that are listening that if you are successful, if you're feeling camped and stuck, you know what? Somebody's out there that's going to come out and come take away what you have in regards to your business, your career, because they're going to always be climbing and leveling up, and they're going to always be hungry, and you're going to be camped, and you could easily, I'm not saying you're going to, but you could lose it, right? You could, and it's not just losing your materialistic stuff. It's losing your health. It's losing your spiritual connection. It's losing everything in life. You always got to be, in my opinion, you always got to be working on yourself. You always got to be leveling up. Like you said, you read. I listen to books. I've become a huge fan of listening to books. I listen to podcasts. I'm cognizant about what I watch, what I read, and feed into my brain, because I'm the only person that it is important in regards to building my life. I have to make myself number one. What am I doing? And then worry about everybody outside of that after the fact. Because if I'm not good between my 6 inches, it's hard for me to, you know, coach, work, support, whether it's family, friends, clients. It don't matter what it is. And too many people don't work on themselves, and it's sad. And if you're listening and you're struggling, check your associations. Again, associations aren't always people. Listeners that have listened to me a long time know that. It's about what you're watching, what you're reading. It's about all the different aspects of your life, right? Get it down to a point where you're putting more good things in and you're ejecting all the bad things and keeping it away from you. You got to protect yourself.
Yeah, you know, you can't give what you don't have. So there's a lot of fake coaches out there or whatever that they pretend they could coach because they read this book and they have the knowledge or whatever. But bottom line is you got to take care of yourself. You got to build yourself up in every, I mean, physically and mentally, obviously. Physically too. I mean, it's really, really important. Your health is really important.
Oh, absolutely. Nutritionally too.
So it's physically, mentally, and spiritually. It's three things. You gotta watch
Absolutely.
all the time. And again, you have to, based on your core values, go back and like, is this congruent with my personality? Is this what a healthy person would eat? Is this what a healthy person? This activity, laying down on a couch for 6 hours every Saturday and Sunday watching football. Is this what a healthy person does? And always be auditing what you're doing.
Oh yeah, I was talking to a young guy in his his mid 20s, later 20s just recently, and he was saying, "Well, I'm going to go buy this NFL package, or maybe it was UFC package or whatever." And he said the problem, he says, um, you know, my significant other doesn't want me to do that because I've already spent enough time on it. And I said, "Well, I have to agree with your significant other, because what are you going to do? How many hours will it take of your life on the weekend? Are you going to be present with your kids? Are you going to be present with your significant other? Or are you, what's more important to you? What is your priorities?" And I want you to think about that. And
I see.
I haven't talked to him since.
No core values. That's the problem. It's
None.
like a ship adrift. I mean, you're just going, oh, well, I don't know. There's no direction. And I think the core values give you direction.
Oh, and our society needs core values though, because commercialism and corporations and the government, all they're wanting us to do is be sheep. Of course, they're gonna, oh, buy this NFL package, never miss an NFL game again. Buy this UFC package, buy this, baseball package, do this, do that, because they're always wanting to feed their dreams. They're always wanting to feed their stockholders' ability to make more money. They don't care about you being a person that's centered around, your mental, your spiritual, and your physical. They don't care. They just want you to pay that $79.95 a month or whatever it's going to cost.
Yeah. I don't have anything against entertainment. I like soccer.
Neither do I. Neither do I.
I found out that instead of me watching the game, I could watch the highlights in YouTube. And so I'm saving, 90 minutes of TV time, and it's reduced down to 10 or 12 minutes. And I'm happy with that stuff because it gives me more time to do other things, to be more productive or other things. We're doing After my wife and I did 75 hard, we are continuing to do the long walks in the afternoon with my children. And if I was watching TV or I wanted to watch any of those European tournaments or whatever, I couldn't do the walks because most of the games are late. So I chose not to do that. So when I
Yeah,
come back from my walk, I could watch 10 minutes and watch the highlights, and that's the end of it. So
well, and that's great because, for me, I'm an avid hockey fan, right? Because,
nitty.
Canadian, US sport, well, hockey was created in Canada, right? And, like last night, I have season tickets. Well, if I don't go to the games, I give them to clients, I give them to family. So I go to about 50% of the games. There's 44 games that are in at home. I go to about 20 of them. I took my son last night. It's ability for us to connect and we enjoy ourselves. But guess what? When I'm not at the game, there's very seldom that I ever turn the television on and people say, "Did you watch the game last night? I know you didn't go." Nope. Why? Because I had other things that were more important to me. I don't need to sit there for 3 hours. I can watch the highlights.
There you go.
Right. And so my son said to me a couple days ago, he says, "Dad, how do you keep up on the games? You always know so much." I said, "Well, it's called this little app. It's the NHL app. And I click on this, it tells me the highlights, right? Takes me a few minutes. Maybe I'll watch a couple of the YouTube clips they've attached to it. I spend a few minutes and I'm caught up on the game. I've seen the goals, I've seen, the different things, the highlights of the game." He says, "Oh, that's how you do it." I said, "Yeah, good question though." Right. And I thanked him. "Thank you for asking." I said,
Yeah.
"That's how I do it." Because he doesn't get it. He says, "Well, uncle this or friend this is every single game, or they buy the NHL package and they're watching game after game after game. You've never been like that." I said, "No, because my core values are not that's not conducive to my core values. That would have taken away from my faith, my family, and my work." Right. So you're right. Every time we go back to our core values, right? So, we'll go on from there. Those of you that are interested in learning more about core values, I'm certain that Miguel or I could have a conversation with you, but you can also research it and Google it. It is something very simplistic, back to what Miguel always focuses on, and including myself. That's the way I was raised. Keep things simple, stupid. It's what my dad used to say to people all the time. Don't overcomplicate. Keep it simple. Right. And I appreciate your insight to that too. So, Miguel, I myself, and as you, are God centered, as we've been talking about. People have heard that throughout this podcast. Through my darkest days in my life, through loss, marital breakup, family challenges, business upset, God has always been my anchor, as we've discussed. And we've come to that, the listeners are realizing that even more and more, especially my loyal listeners that listen all the time. They know that God has always been by my side, but I haven't always been listening or seeing what he's bringing to assist or uplift me. And we've discussed this, but I want to get more specific into it. What would you say is the key to having an open mind to God's influence and guidance that he's providing us in all aspects of our life? What's the key to ensure that we are aware of that?
Hmm. So for me, when I make decisions, for instance, people go, "Well, how do you know this is the right business? How do you know you're doing the right thing? How do you know, you know, if you're going the right direction?" So for me is I'll make a decision based on my core values. I make a decision on something. And if I don't have any obstacles, then I'll continue on. If I hit a really hard obstacle, then I know it's not meant for me. And instead of wasting energy in that, then I'll just shift and do something else. That's again too simple, but that's how I make decisions.
But that's the best way.
Yeah, that's how I know. Like this business that my wife and I have, you know, it's been 2 years. It's finally taking off, but we had to build the machinery. We had to have the machinery built. We had to build get the raw materials, build the inventory, and through all that time, I've been asking, is this right? Is this where you want me, God? Is this where you want me? And I haven't seen any obstacles. Like for instance, it's a woman-owned minority business because it needs to be here in the United States. It helps. It hasn't helped yet, but it will help eventually. That's my wife is 51% owner. and she needed to get certified. This is a nationwide certification. So I'm like, okay, this is a hard one. If we don't get the certification, maybe this is a sign that we shouldn't continue with the business. Well, people get the certification. It takes them about a year. It took us 3 months. Okay,
Wow.
got it. Continue on with this, and so forth. You look for little signs or big signs. Again, as soon as there's other business that I built. Like I built a business. We were with another partner. We were importing. We went to Mexico, and our culture is based on natural products. We used to cure stomach ache with this tea, or a headache with this tea. Or if you couldn't go to sleep, you took this herb or whatever. And so we were bringing products from Mexico, and it seemed like it was too easy in the beginning, and then we started with certain problems with the partnership, and then it got to a point where it wasn't sustainable. And instead of me fighting or whatever, I just quit it. I knew I wasn't going to get along with a partner, and he didn't match my core values. He showed me that he didn't match my core values, and I was out of it. So I look for those types of signs, and to either stop what I'm doing or continue what I'm doing.
I love that though. Look for the real signs.
Yeah.
That is it's true though, because you talked about the fact, well, maybe we shouldn't get this certification. If we don't get this certification, that's a sign. Maybe it wasn't meant to be. And so, it's a great way for people to look at the fact of what God doesn't do things to us, he does it for us, right? And you look at what Ed talks about, which came from Tony and so many other people. People don't realize that. They just, why did this happen to me? Right?
We have free will, right? So I could be obstinate and go, you know what? I didn't get the certification, but I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that, and then this doesn't go well, and then I'm going to force it this way, and and you start forcing it. Now it's your free will against what God had for you. So you need to be humble enough to recognize that, hey, maybe this wasn't meant to be here. For me, the certification was a huge thing.
Oh,
And then,
especially to do it in 3 months.
oh
Wow.
yeah. So
Good for her.
we got the green light on this one, and I was pushing on the retail side. I hired a marketing company. Then we were going to go. They were going to get us into CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, and all sorts of things. And I knew I was pushing it, but I'm like, they're the experts. They're going to do this and all this stuff. And after 8 months of pushing that, not focusing on other things, it fell through. They ripped me off basically. I got scammed, and I took it as, okay, that wasn't the channel for me. That particular channel wasn't for me right now. So I focus on the B2B on a smaller scale. So I'm getting picked up by little stores here and there. So I'm building my reputation this way. This is a lot easier than trying to, make pennies on the dollar working with Walgreens or whoever else. And so I'm able to shift. When I see it, then I make the shift right away.
So it's a rifle approach versus a shotgun approach.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, I like that. And the reason I say that is I look at all the people out, like I get approached all the time. Do this, do that. We can give you all these leads, and we'll have these people make the calls for you. You'll only get, verifiable leads and blah, blah, blah. But it's not a lead or somebody that I have actually communicated with, that I've seen if I want that lead, or you know what I mean? It's not centered to me and my core values or who I am as a person. And it's unfortunate that happened to you, but now you're focusing on where you want it to go and what it's going to be. And you're controlling this. You're the captain, right?
Yeah. So I'm going to give you a little piece of advice for your listeners is,
Sure.
now when I make deals with people that call me up and go, hey, we could get your business to this level and to that level, I'm just like, great, let's do it. I'm not going to pay you anything. We'll do a profit sharing. I'll give you, tell me what's fair, what commission is fair, and you do that. Because you're so sure you're the best in the industry, and you're telling me the business is going to grow 30% or 50% or 100% or 200%. I love it, man. Show me. Put the work in. I'm not going to pay you a single penny. I will share revenue of whatever you bring in. And boy, they drop off like flies. They don't want to. They want that $2,000-3,000 marketing fee every month for them to try all these things. I hired a marketing company. I hired 5 marketing companies for this business, and they're all gone. Nobody did the job that my daughter is doing right now. She's converting sales because she's got the problem with agencies, and I know there's a lot of guys that have agencies and all that stuff, but this is my own personal view, and I have to say this because this is what happened to me, and it is my own personal view. Problem with an agency is you're a client, so they could have 200 clients. How much of their time, 8 hours a day or whatever, is allocated to you? So I started looking at it that way, and I'm like, hardly anything. They try to automate you into some process or whatever, and do the postings and do this and do that. They try to automate your process. When my business, it's very personal because it deals with your health. The essential oils deal with your health, something very personal. So it has to have the personal touch. It's not like I'm selling, baseball cards or whatever, something like that. So I realized that we needed the personal touch, and so I don't need an agency. I might need an agency for all the things, but not for the direct customer. I don't need an agency for that.
Your daughter's personally connected to it. She's gonna have that centric heart.
Yep.
And that connection of how you've trained, or not trained her, but raised her, and the patterns she's learned is centered around your core values that you've lived, right? So that's important. It's going to be centered around the fact that you like the natural, right? And she's going to bring that energy to every interaction and every business she talks to. So that's phenomenal.
So the word is vested. She is vested.
Yes, thank you. I couldn't think of the word.
Where agency is not vested, but the agency becomes vested when you don't pay him a fee and you go, okay, you're on commission. Then they become vested because they're putting an effort into it. And that's kind of the deals that I'm working on now. Actually, I have two deals right now with 2 agents. Well, they're not really agencies, but with 2 people that are going to be working on commission. And that's it. They'll make their money. I don't have any ceilings. They can make as much as they want, as much as they bring is this percentage. Let's go.
That's good though. In my industry, in Canada, it's that way. In the US, I'm commission based, right? I gotta go out and I gotta prove myself. Nobody's saying we're paying you 5,000 or 10,000 a month, whether you produce or not. I have to produce. It's either feast, famine, right? Kind of thing. And I've been like that for 20 years.
But I like that. I like the model. I mean,
so do I. Because you know what? I look at my industry. I used to be a compliance officer. I used to monitor over 240, me and another gentleman monitor over 243 licensed people. And the amount of people that are still licensed out of that 240 I left that model a long time ago and started my own business up in 2007, my own agency. But prior to that, working for that other agency, I bet you there's not 5 people left of that 240 because they want that, they want to have money and not put the effort in. Once in a while, put the effort in. When your back's against the wall and you've got to, show me what you have. Then you can make as much as you want. There's no ceiling on how much I make. The only ceiling is me. I'm the glass on the ceiling, right? Yeah. And so I appreciate your input into that. One of the things I wanted to ask too is how is your podcast going, Godfather Chronicles? And how has that affected your life?
Well, it's not going. I stopped recording. Okay, so when we started the business, the Natural Choice Company business, I hired some people, and I had a media person because I thought I needed a media person and a graphics person and all sorts of things. And when you're building the business and you're ordering, custom machinery and you sourcing raw materials, you don't have a product per se.
Yeah.
So you start working on the branding. So we're working on branding, and I'm like, okay, you know what? I've been meaning to write a book for a long time, and about live business and everything else. And I said, okay, well, the best way for me to do this is if I do a podcast. So, on Instagram, I used to have Mondays with Miguel, and I would get several people on the phone and talk to them free or charge for 30 minutes, an hour. And sometimes some people couldn't do it on Mondays, they would do it on all the days of the week. But I started realizing, man, I know a lot of stuff in a lot of different fields. And I'm like, I wonder how I could put all that into a book. So I asked people to ask me questions, and then I started going, okay, yeah, I know this, I know how to do this. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to develop a podcast so that I could get material for my book. So that was the reason behind that.
That's smart. That's a
yeah.
good idea.
So I did 28 podcasts or whatever, and then I had to let go of the people because they weren't doing anything. And so I stopped recording, but I continued with the book. I'm building it slowly but surely, but yeah, I missed the podcast, to be honest with you, but I don't think I have the time. Again, priorities. I don't think I have the time to spend to do it right now. And so
Yeah, but that's good though. Again, back to realization. What
yeah,
is our priorities? What's fitting in there? But at least it was a catalyst. You had a reason for doing it. To write your book, to get your mental juices flowing. Like I know myself with podcasting, I learn more than any of my listeners learn.
yeah,
Absolutely, right? It stimulates me differently. It
yeah,
makes me think differently, and it networks me to even more people, and I gain more and more friends through it. It's just amazing.
yeah. So for me, I interviewed one person only. I think it was Marcus Aurelius. He's in the syndicate. Um, but he was the only one that I interviewed. But the rest of the stuff was just me talking about certain things, and I wanted to see really how deep I was in this in the subject that I was talking about. See if I really understood that, how that. So more than anything, it was like a test for me. It's like, really, you really know, because it's a lot of people out there that are only a couple of centimeters deep.
Yeah, of course.
Talking metric because you're in Canada, so and that's it. And it's like there's no depth in anything. And I don't know. I found out I have some depth in a lot of stuff, so that was exciting. So I got to know myself a little more, and hopefully helped a lot of folks out there too.
Well, and the number one person that helped was you. And
Yep.
that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that to for the people listening or watching this. Podcasting has just made me, it's been like people say to me, what has it taught you? Well, it taught me to be a better listener. It taught me to be present in conversations more. It taught me to, as I'm listening to Miguel, for example, to hear specific things. So I'm not thinking about what I need to respond or how I need to. I'm listening to Miguel so that I can actually, hear what he says, so that if I do ask questions or I comment on it, it's centered around what you said. So it's allowed me to become a better learner. Like it has. It's taught me so much. And again, back to the network of stuff and the realization of it. I didn't start the podcast up for any reason but for passion, to want to be people, to be more of a people person, a relationship builder, and learning those skills has helped me already build my brand of Give a Heck in other aspects. It helped me with my book even too when I wrote my book, right? So you're right. It's great that you have that realization.
I think that the fact that it taught you something is just again, right? I mean, he taught you things that where could you learn to be a better listener?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
there's no school for that, right? So
There
you
isn't.
right, you have to consciously do it, and the podcast when you interview people, it forces you to do that. So it's a great skill that is not innate to you, but you develop the skill. It's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
valuable. Help you in business. He's going to help you with relationships. I mean, just outside the podcast, he's going to help you everywhere.
Well, and even when we're done recording here, I review this stuff because I use a company that's based out of New York, production company. I send everything up to them and I create, what title's going to be. I create, I send up the information in regards to what's going to go into the abbreviated show notes, but it forces me to reflect again on what we've had and talked about. And then I listen to the podcast again. Like I'll actually listen to what we've done and talked about and our review notes because you've given me your time and I've given you my time. And that to me is God saying, you know what, that relationship you've just started needs to be given continued energy. And I put that effort in and I send it up and then I listen to it again. And every person I've had on my podcast, I consider a friend, right? Not necessarily they weren't friends prior, but I consider them a more connected friend, right? Because you talked about earlier people asking that question, what would you ask what would you tell your younger self? Mine has been consistently for the last few years. I'd tell my younger self, you need to shut up and listen. You need to stop thinking you can do it all on your own and listen to what other people have because their knowledge, their ability to communicate to you could be based on 5, 10, 15 years of experience. And if you could shut up and just listen better, you could collapse timeframes in your life. You could take away some grief that you've been causing your family, causing yourself, right? So listening, you're right. There's no school for that. And podcasting has elevated my listening skills beyond belief.
Nice.
Right. So one of the things I want to end up with here, Miguel, is if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
Huh. I think they need to consider the alternative of not giving a heck. The alternative is mediocrity. And, it's, I don't know, listening or reading or whatever, I can't remember, but there's like 5 stages. You're mediocre, you're okay, you're good, you're excellent, or you're elite. You could choose what you want to be. You got God's give you free will. You can make decisions and you could change your life anytime. And you could you can make a decision and become whatever you want. You could be, again, if you're the couch potato kind of person and you're okay with being okay, then that's fine. I mean, don't go to Instagram and adore those people with cars and homes and all sorts of things. But you have the choice to be good, to move up a level, or be better or excellent or elite. You got those choices. And nowadays with the information out there, the free flow of information, you could learn how to get to different levels. So
Yeah, life is a choice. It is that simple. It's just you can live a life on a hamster wheel, or you can decide that you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. You're going to step outside your comfort zone and you're not going to quit every time fear and envelops you or somebody instill fears in you. You're going to face everything and rise. You're going to actually realize, okay, dust my elbow off. I got a little bit of dust. I tripped. Oh, patch my knee up, put a band-aid on. I'm moving forward. Don't let the little small hurdles in life slow you from being the best version of yourself. And just so many people do that.
Just one last thing on I wanted to make a post for the last 2-3 weeks and I haven't, and it's about making decisions. It's a lot of people making decisions and they don't follow. And the reason why they don't follow is because they make the decisions based on an emotion. Oh, I feel fat. I'm going to go on a diet, or I'm going to go on an exercise program. Well, yeah, you feel fat or whatever, but they have to make it. They have to make it a conscious decision. So if you have an urge to make a decision when you're feeling a certain way, write it down. Don't make it, and then later on analyze it. And when you're with your wits, then make the decision, because you're going to be making the decision with no emotion, and it's going to be more intellectual, and it's going to help you probably get through that better than if you just made a decision in an emotional state.
That's great advice. And yeah, it's at the end of the day, as we talked about earlier, emotion drives so much of what we do. And it isn't always right. It isn't always right. It is fueled by outside influences. It's fueled by our own pattern behaviors from our childhood. Our brain, subconscious and conscious mind don't know the difference between the truth and a lie. So writing it down, like you said, and going back to it later, smart idea. Very smart. So our time is almost up, and I want to respect our listeners and your time. However, before we end, can you please tell the listeners what's the best way to reach Miguel?
Probably Instagram at MAG Patriot. That's
Okay.
probably. I'm not too much on the other social platforms, but Instagram I am. You could DM me there if you need anything. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Right on. I'll make sure that goes into the show notes. Listeners, you can find the show notes. If you're new to the show, go to giveaheck.com, go into the podcast portal. You'll see Miguel's smiley face, and right below them will be the abbreviated show notes where you can actually access the information in regards to Instagram. So I appreciate you being on, brother. This is an amazing conversation. It was everything I expected and more, right?
Thank you very much for having me. I had a really good time. I was really looking forward to having this conversation, and you met my expectations.
Yeah, you did as well, my friend. So I appreciate you being on and sharing some of your experiences so that others too can learn it is never too late to give a heck. Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.